Up, up.
Beautiful fish. Beautiful fish.
It certainly is, Jim. I'll tell you that.
All right.
Nice job, Shane. Nice job.
All right. Nice job to you. Let's bring
very
this.
good job of landing on that.
Let's talk steelhead fishing here at Northwest Bait and Scent. There is many techniques for steelhead fishing, whether you're bobber fishing with jigs, or you're back trolling with bait divers and plugs, or you're side drifting with corkies and yarnies. We're going to go over some scenting and baiting techniques to effectively enhance all those approaches. Bobber and jig fishing, probably one of my favorite approaches. I spend a lot of time bobber and jig fishing for steelhead, and there's some real basics to remember. I use a lot of these maxi jigs when it comes to bobber and jig fishing. When it comes to scenting a jig like this is a marabou style jig. Whether it's marabou or rabbit fur, anything that's feather, you want to be careful not to get the scent on the feather itself. You're going to lose the action off that jig. So when you apply either your craw anise formula or your steelhead formula, which all work very well on these, you want to just rub a little of that scent on that jig head. When it comes to bobber and jig fishing, adding a bead to it is really effective. Now this bead is not stuck on this line. You want to put a toothpick or peg this bead, usually a 2 finger width or 1.5 finger width from the hook, and then hang this bead 12 to 18 inches below the jig. And you can also scent that bead by rubbing a little scent on the bead itself. That's going to enhance that bead. If you can use bait on these jigs, I really like to tip them with a nice coon stripe shrimp. So here's some shrimp in this jar. Now, these shrimp are dyed and they're sitting on rock salt, so they're stiffened up. I've also added some scent to this jar. I've added some steelhead formula to that, so that they can sit overnight and soak that steelhead formula in. So besides adding a little scent to the jig heads and the beads by rubbing it on there, keeping it off your feathers, you can take one of these shrimp. I like to tear the tail off and apply the tail to the jig. Now the reason I apply that tail to the jig like so is that's going to mimic a full shrimp. If you look at that jig sitting like this and a shrimp swimming through the water, that's what you're looking at. And a steelhead or any other fish like to kill head first. So when they go after that shrimp, they're going to get all the hook on that jig. I just replaced the head with the jig head.
That's a pretty girl. You almost decided she didn't want to go in there.
No, I know.
She almost.
I actually kind of just stuck it in there and she swam into it.
Good shot.